Hey there, my name is Matt, and welcome to Kindness Kills Hate. Kindness kills hate every time. And again, the reason I wanted to make this channel is really to just bring awareness about how there's so much hate on the internet right now, on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, other Twitter, various other media sources. Um, and I've noticed one particular topic that just seems to be popping up more and um, more commonly on TikTok, but I've seen it more polarized and more debated on YouTube. But that would be why, or that would be the hashtag. It would be hashtag blame all men, or all men to blame, or men are the blame of everything, or we don't need men, or men are scum, or anything that generally results around how men are unneeded, unwanted, and basically hated. And I've said in one of my other videos on a different channel that as a white male, as a white Christian, straight man, all four things that essentially offend one particular group of people, which is now unfortunately feminist or new age feminism. Um, those are like four things that kind of paint the picture of enemy on me. And I also live in California, so to be those four things kind of makes me an enemy. Um, Not only do I have Christian tattoos and scriptures written on my body and things like that, but I'm also very vocal about my opinions and vocal about advocation for kindness over hate, and just trying to bring awareness to that. Um, Aside from like the fact that there's a lot of misinformation out there about there are a lot of creators right now. I'm seeing a lot, especially female creators, and a lot of creators of the LGBTQ community that seem to be thinking that men are obsolete or incapable of contributing to society, or no longer needed, or narcissistic. That's another big one. In general, most psychopaths and most narcissists in general, yes, are men, but there are quite a big number of vulnerable narcissists and psychopaths, sociopaths, people with other mental conditions that fall under females. So, there is a lot of mental illness in the human race, and to say that one a gender or another is statistically always this is just wrong. This is wrong. It's more labeling, and as I said on one of my other channels, that labeling can be harmful, especially when it comes to labeling people with a stigma attached to it. That comes down to hate. It comes down to placing people in a certain category and deciding their value on that, and that's not empathy. And to say that you're an evolved feminine person because you come to the reality that you don't need men for survival, and that civilization can go on without men, or that it's okay for people to stomp on men, blame men, or to not take any accountability for their actions and how relationships fail, or just the issues in general. It is a two-way street. Men and women are responsible for the issues and how society is, kind of failing right now. And to say that it's men's fault, that we are responsible for everything and that we should be blamed for everything, is just it's wrong. It's hateful. And again, I just want to bring so much awareness to so many of the female creators out there. And there are other ones that I just don't know the name yet because I haven't researched their name, but just a couple off the top of my head. Sarah Dawn Moore and Roma Army are excellent examples of advocates for men who think that the feminism movement, the New Age feminism movement towards hate towards men and being valid in that, or empowerment towards women, and that's being, a very hypocritical point of view, that they all disagree with those things. And to see women empower men and be advocates for men, especially in the current atmosphere, is just so relieving, and it's such a breath of fresh air. And just coming from a man who, again, is straight, who's Christian, who is white, and who fits under all the categories of, what the left hates, in general, what liberalism hates. And to hear that there is a lot of women out there that still want a man that generally goes after the old-fashioned traditions, that generally goes for the roles, that is God-fearing, that serves God, that wants to serve people, love people, and just be loving. And I'm glad to hear that there are women like that support us. So thank you to Roma Army. Thank you to Sarah Dawn Moore. And their content has been really eye-opening. It's part of the reason I wanted to start this content, because their kindness has made it easier for me to be open about the kindness I do to other people. And, I don't think you should be so open about, kindness. I kind of, excuse me, I kind of think some of those videos where people are out there videotaping themselves about being good to homeless people, or videotaping themselves giving a whole bunch of money to homeless people. At the end of the day, they're making money on that video. So, and I'm not saying that what they're doing is wrong, or is invalid. I think it's really cool that you guys are doing that, and there's a lot of other YouTubers out there that have these kindness videos, and maybe my channel eventually will evolve into that. Maybe it'll be the same thing. So I don't know, but I just think it's I think if you're doing something for someone, you're serving somebody, I don't think you should draw attention to yourself to do it. I think, I don't know the scripture off the top of my head, but I think it says somewhere in the New Testament that when you do things to serve others, you do it in the secret, because God knows what you're doing in the secret. You don't have to do it in public for everyone else to see, because worldly things, worldly people who are imperfect, who have imperfect tastes and imperfect standards, they're not the ones we should be trying to honor. We should be trying to honor each other and our God. Well, whatever God you personally believe in. But in my personal belief that loving people is a way that I can honor God. And hate is not a way to do that. And to spread all this callous hate towards men, and to empower women to say that it's all men's fault and that women can do everything without us, then if that's the case, then how come women haven't done it already? How come there are no female, entirely female cultures that are doing it, and entirely modern, and are the main economy in the world, and are all entirely women? Like, the last one that I can actually think of that is now extinct are the Amazonians. That was an all-female culture, and I'm not even sure that was a real culture. I think that I'm not really sure. I really don't have the information on it. That's just me thinking of one historically. But in terms of a current modern culture, I don't think there is an entirely female culture that is modern, that has modern technology, that has infrastructure, that has engineering, that has electricity, and all that stuff, that is doing it all by themselves without the help of men. We need each other. To say that a man can do all this without women is factually wrong. And to say that women can do it all without men is factually wrong. It's coming down to a point where women are so empowered, or so worried about being empowered, being recognized as being empowered, whether they're not weak, that they're actually losing their femininity in the process, and adopting masculinity aspects, and becoming, the very thing they actually hate in us. And it's so interesting because they don't even see the hypocritical aspects of it. Many of these creators, these female creators, who abdicate for hating men, for blaming men, many of them are aesthetically, visually pretty. But I like the old notion that says, doesn't matter how beautiful you are. If you have an ugly heart, you are ugly. And a lot of those women, no matter how beautiful they are on the outside, are ugly people, because they have ugly hearts, because they hate based on gender, or they hate based on race, or they hate based on sex appeal, or preference, or whatever that be the case, or they hate just in general, or they hate on gender, and they validate, rationalize it. They don't bother to try to understand how men operate. They don't try to understand how men work, and the contribution men have added through history and time. And yes, even though men have been responsible for pretty much every war throughout history, men have also been responsible for the greatest engineering and technological advances in history. They're responsible for space travel. They're responsible for air conditioning. I don't know of anyone else who's thankful for air conditioning, but I live in California, and after about that last heat wave we had of 115 or 110 degree heat, I'm very grateful for whoever invented air conditioning. But I happen to know he was a man. I happen to know that 80% of all IT workers people that maintain phones, people that maintain cell services, people that maintain the internet, the very thing that you were watching videos like this on, are men. About 75 to 80% of construction workers worldwide are men. People that build the infrastructure that you live in, the houses and buildings that you work in, that you're housed in, you're protected from the elements, and those are built by generally men. We have technology that is, even though there are a lot more female roles in technology and advancement and space exploration, all that are popping up, and more power to them. That's awesome that there's more equality popping up in areas that were previously dominated by men. It's cool to see that, but to say that women can do it all without men is preposterous, and it's ignorant. And history will teach you that it's not true. I can't think of any time in history where there has been a successful female culture that has maintained its entire female culture and managed to proliferate and maintain its generation without the use of men at all. I can't think of one. And if you can think of one, please tell me. But as I said in a previous video, actually my first video, is that one of the things that people bring up in I've seen in people, especially in TikTok, talk about how women can use bone marrow to basically impregnate themselves with copies of themselves, clones of themselves. And yes, you can do that. We do have the technology to do that. But the problem with cloning is that there's generational entropy. The more you copy an original person, a female, and even though you're copying this person, yes, you will be able to do that, proliferate. The more you do that, each generation of clone will be more and more handicapped, mutated, congenitally defected. It will just be worse and worse and worse as time goes on. And in 10 generations, we'll say what was that? About 1,000 years, and 15 to 20 generations, whatever that is, 1,000 years. What initially was the first woman to start this process of cloning is not the end result anymore. It won't even be a woman anymore. It'll be something else. So there's really no longevity in the idea that women can maintain birth rates by using bone marrow for impregnation. It may last a couple generations, but sooner or later you'll see things pop up in genetics that can't be reversed, and you need men for that. You need fertilization. I know this is a very unpopular fact, because it's not an opinion, it's a fact. There are two sets of chromosomes in the human genome. XY, which are men. I have an XY chromosome. And then there's XX, which are female. My mom, she has an XX chromosome. Sorry, I stammer a little bit, so working on it. Anyway, so my mom, she has an XX chromosome. Or my dad, for example, because obviously that's weird, but my mom is XX and my dad is XY, and they combined to create myself and my brother. So, and we're not clones. We are genetic makeup of each individual. If you saw my father, you would see that I have a lot of my facial structure in my father, but I also have my mother's eyes. I'm very tall like my dad is, but I have very curly, wavy hair when it gets long, so that's a lot like my mom. So as you can see, I'm a genetic makeup of both individuals. But to say, but I'm not a clone. A good example of a clone would be like identical twins. And I'm not saying that they're clones. I'm just saying that they would be the closest example of natural cloning. And that's just too, basically, if I remember biology class right, and I'm probably wrong on this, but basically, it's basically just two fertilized eggs that created at the same time instead of one, and that's what twins are. So anyway, if I'm wrong on that, please correct me in the comments. Please educate me. I would love to know about that. But anyway, twins are the closest thing that I can think of to actual natural cloning. And as far as that goes, that's not something we have control over. You don't get to decide that you have twins because you want twins. You get twins because that's what God decided you're going to have, period. And there's no other way to make that happen. XY plus XX combined will create an embryo, which will grow into a fetus, which will grow into a baby, which will grow into a human being, which will grow into an adult, which will grow into an individual. And That's that. To say that there's any other genders in between X and XY is preposterous. It's just confusion. It's just opinion. And look, I'm not saying that any of the transgender people out there that have chosen to this lifestyle are wrong for what they've chosen. It's your choice. It's your future. It's your destiny. If that's what you want to do with it, it's your choice. But it's a choice. You can't say something that you were born like. You chose to change your plumbing. You chose to change your outward exterior appearance to make you more appearing like a female or more appearing like a male or whatever the case be. And that's a choice. You weren't born that way. And young teen boys are being forced to take estrogen treatments at ages where they're just starting to develop the ability to reproduce. And that's a very, very confusing time. I remember it as a young boy, 15 years old, 14 years old, just trying to navigate my way through puberty and trying to understand all these hormones and feelings that were going on in my own body, to have to be dealing with that and then have to have estrogen added to it, which is a female hormone that is in minimal amounts. It's supposed to be in minimal amounts in boys and in more profound amounts in females, and testosterone is supposed to be in minimal amounts in females and more profound amounts in boys. So to have a profound amount of estrogen mixed with a profound amount of testosterone, that adds I've never had it happen to me, so I can't really add to that or say that it happens, but genetically, just chemically, just trying to understand those two hormones in equal combat with each other, I guess is the way to put it, in one human body during that time of development and growth, it's got to be hell on the mind. It's got to be hell on the soul. And to be growing up with a parent or a parent figure who is pushing you into this and saying that, ooh, you look like a girl, you should be a girl, or, oh, just because that one boy one time thought that he wanted to wear a dress, that means he wants to be a girl, and that we should put him through this series of treatments. That's wrong. It is wrong to subject a human being to forcing them to become something they are not genetically, because you want them to be, or because they don't meet your expectations, because that boy wasn't the daughter you always wanted, and you're just someone who wants to be in control of everything. That is disgusting and reprehensible and borderline evil to put and force on a developing child, and to expect them to be okay with it, and to expect society to just empower you to continue to do it. It's wrong. And it's nice to see that there are so many people in the LGBTQ community that are coming out and talking about how reprehensible it is that these young teens and children are being forced by their parents, by their guardians, by the one or two people that are supposed to protect them the most, into these transitions at very young ages or during puberty. And it's really nice to see that community support the idea that this is wrong. This is something we should not be doing to our children, and the government should not be putting their foot so far into other people's lives and allowing this to just happen. And this is not what our forefathers had about government. This is not that level. I don't think it is. I think they're overstepping. And I don't know if anyone saw that Biden video where it looked like something out of Hitler. That was some scary stuff. I don't know about you guys, but this country isn't what it used to be. It's really not the land of the free anymore, because I'm not free to have my opinions without being judged, discredited, insulted, hated, or even threatened, right? And that's the way for a lot of us people, especially if you're a man, especially if you're a Christian, if you're straight, if you're male. I mean, I already said man, male, I guess it's the same thing. Sorry, white was the fourth one, right? If you're a category of those four things, hey, even if you're black, that's what it's coming down to too. I know a lot of good black men that are African American men that are black. My best friend is Kevin, and he is a black man, but he is an American black man who has heritage in I think Nigeria. I'm not sure on that. I think you might correct me on that one later. But my point being is that it goes both ways. It's not just limited to the white men. It's limited to all men of every color. We are hated as a whole. It's not just about race, but I am going to say that if you're a black man or if you're a white man, in general, we're hated the most because of the stigma attached to the color we have on our skin. Do you know what skin color really comes down to? It's a chemical called melanin in the skin. And really what determines on how much melanin is in the skin is your proximity to the equator of the earth. In countries like the Congo or Zimbabwe, I think that's a country, Niger, Congo, those Central African countries, a lot of the people are very dark skinned because of their proximity to the equator. Now, if you look up in European countries like Ireland and Scotland, where my heritage is from, we have very light skin because we're very, very far away from the equator. We're closer to the poles. And physically, if you're talking physics or you're talking astrophysics, they will tell you that there's a little bit of a bulge in the center of the Earth where the equator is, because that's how the gravitational pull of the sun affects the Earth, and it's basically pulling on it like a magnet pulls on a bubble of liquid iron. You see a little bit of a bulge popping out, and that's basically where the effect of the equator is. Now, it doesn't sound like it's very much, but basically anybody living on the equator or near the equator is a little bit closer to the sun at all times because of the gravitational pull than the rest of the Earth is, especially people near the poles. Actually, people that live near the poles, like Scandinavia, Greenland, Canada, Antarctica, parts of South Africa, they have very light skin, and that's why there's a lot of white people, aside from the fact that South Africa is a British colony. But that's also why there's a lot of white people in South Africa as well as black people, because of how close it is to the southern southern pole. So in terms of actually there being a scientific reason as to why some people have some more melanin in their skin and why some people have some less melanin in their skin, and there's scientific reason to support that. It really has nothing to do with superiority. It has nothing to do who's better than that race, who's better than this race, or anything like that. And it's disgusting that we have divided an entire group of people, human beings, based on the amount of a chemical called melanin in our skin. It is that disgusting that we actually divide on color. We hate based on color. We hate based on sex. We hate based on religion. We hate based on gender. It's I already said that, but I guess you know what I'm talking about. There's so many levels of hate, and it's coming to a head, especially on TikTok and YouTube, that men are the enemy, and just to be a white man, a straight white man, and Christian in today's society is pretty scary. And my best friend Kevin, he says pretty much the same thing, that it's kind of scary to be basically a man that believes in God, and he's a black man, obviously, and he's straight, and in his own opinions, he's having the same kind of experience in his own life. So it's not just limited to white men; it's limited to every man. But I think that race is one of the biggest dividers in human history, and it really just comes down to God protecting his people, because what God was doing by putting melanin in the skin of people closer to the equator is he was trying to protect them from harsher sunlight. That's what he was trying to do. Melanin, the more melanin you have in your skin, determines how much protection you have against sunlight. And that's why you don't see too many Africans or people with darker skin with blue eyes. That's actually a result of that too. Genetically, if you have blue eyes like me and fair skin, then you're a person that probably originated somewhere in Northern Europe, and that's true. I was my family came from Scotland, so that's about as Northern Europe as it gets. But blue eyes, for example, are they absorb blue light, and blue light is compressed light. So if it's actually bad for people with blue eyes to be looking at so much blue light, which kind of sucks because I love blue and I have so much blue light behind me. So, but that aside, people with fair eyes would be more susceptible to UV damage from the light, And if you lived in a situation where you were on the equator, next to the equator, you would be closer to the sun, you would be more susceptible to damage to your eyes. So people living on the equator, near the equator, in general have very dark eyes, and they have more melanin in their eyes, just like their skin, which gives them protection from the sunlight. So really, that's what melanin is. And we actually hate people based on the amount of melanin in their skin, and that's what it comes down to. And that's what I just want to try to help people understand, that, like, I don't get why there's so much hate against people, against race. And man, I just wish we could just talk about these things, the real issues, and not blame everybody for everything, or blame an entire group of people for this, that, or the other thing, or to try to say that all society's issues are men's fault, or to say that all society's issues are women's fault. We're all responsible. We are all responsible for how this world evolves into a better world, and no one is escapable of accountability for this. And to say that anyone is escapable of accountability is just irresponsible and immature, and that's just my unpopular opinion. So again, thanks for stopping by. If this is more content you want to see and you consider this, maybe consider subscribing if this is the kind of content you agree with, or if you agree with more information on my videos in the future. And if you have any opinions on this stuff, even if you don't agree with me, hey, comment. Let's talk about it. I'm open to discussion. I'm open to discussing these things. I'm not afraid to sharing my ideas. And you know what? I'm open-minded enough to accept ideas from other people. I'm not closed-minded to the point where I'm not willing to change my thoughts and views. So if you have some ideas about what I've said and you want to bring some awareness of your own opinions to the light, go ahead and comment. But keep it clean, keep it considerate, keep it kind. Because I truly believe that kindness kills hate. And we're not going to get out of the boat of division by hating each other. We're going to get out of the boat of division by loving each other, accepting each other, understanding each other, and bringing awareness of those things. So again, I just want to say special thanks to Roma Army, and special thanks to Sarah Dawn Moore, who are advocates for men and anti-hate against men. And if you are not familiar with their channels, go check them out, especially if you're a guy who's noticed all the hate that you've gotten in recent months in the atmosphere in general of hate towards men. Go check it out. And thanks again. Take care, guys.